An egg coated in a revolutionary plastic could withstand a blowtorch at 2,500 degrees Celsius without the egg inside even cooking. Imagine cities where drought was a choice, not a catastrophe, thanks to a machine designed in the mid-20th century. Centuries ago, Roman engineers built harbors with concrete that could heal itself, structures still baffling modern science with their endurance. What if deadly diseases could have been tackled with precisely tuned frequencies, an idea explored nearly 100 years ago? These aren't fantasies. They are glimpses of inventions that flickered into existence only to fade away, leaving us to wonder what might have been. Number 9. Arthur Elmer Roberts, Electrified Sand Fog Dispersal. Picture this. It's the early 20th century, a time when airplanes were still a novelty and giant ocean liners were the kings of transatlantic travel. But one ancient enemy plagued all forms of transport: fog. Thick, soupy fog could grind travel to a halt, leading to dangerous delays and terrifying accidents. An inventor named Arthur Elmer Roberts, an American electrical engineer, believed he had a rather shocking solution. Around the 1920s and 1930s, Roberts proposed and patented ideas for a system to dissipate fog. His concept wasn't about heat, like some later systems. Instead, he focused on electricity. Roberts envisioned using highly charged particles like electrified sand sprayed into the fog. The theory, in simple terms, was that these charged particles would attract the tiny water droplets that make up fog. As the droplets coalesced onto the sand particles, they would become heavier and fall to the ground as a light drizzle clearing the air. Roberts wasn't just idly dreaming. He conducted experiments. Reports from the time suggest he demonstrated his technique, with some accounts claiming success in clearing small areas of fog. He received patents for his method and apparatus for dissipating fog in the 1930s. The idea generated some buzz. Newspapers picked up on the potential of a man who could seemingly wave an electric wand and make fog vanish. Think of the possibilities. Airports no longer paralyzed by low visibility, ships navigating harbors with newfound clarity, roads safer in misty conditions. But Roberts' vision never fully materialized on a grand scale. The reasons are complex and not entirely clear. Perhaps the technology was ahead of its time, or the scale up from small experiments to clearing entire airports proved too challenging with the resources then available. Funding for such ambitious, unproven civilian projects could have been scarce, especially as the world headed towards economic depression and then global conflict. During World War II, a different fog dispersal system known as FIDO, Fog Investigation and Dispersal Operation, was developed and used primarily in Britain. IDO worked by burning massive amounts of fuel alongside runways to heat the air and evaporate the fog. It was effective, saving many Allied aircraft and crews, but it was also incredibly expensive and resource-intensive, a brute force solution born of wartime necessity. Roberts' electrical approach was fundamentally different, potentially cleaner and more elegant. After the war, aviation technology advanced rapidly with radar and instrument landing systems, reducing some of the reliance on pure visibility. Perhaps these developments made the quest for widespread fog dispersal seem less urgent for a time. So, Roberts' electrified sand largely faded into historical curiosity. Yet, fog continues to be a significant factor in transportation accidents. Consider the 1977 Tenerife airport disaster, the deadliest in aviation history, where two Boeing 747s collided on a foggy runway, resulting in 583 fatalities. While a complex chain of events involving communication errors and pilot decisions led to the crash, dense fog was a critical contributing condition that severely limited visibility for the pilots and air traffic control. In maritime history, the sinking of the SS Andrea Doria in 1956, after colliding with the MS Stockholm in heavy fog off the coast of Nantucket, claimed 46 lives. Countless other accidents on roads, railways, and at sea have occurred where fog played a treacherous role, obscuring dangers until it was too late. These events remind us that even with modern navigation aids, fog remains a persistent hazard. Number 8. Pons and Fleischmann's cold fusion, March 23, 1989. On this day, two chemists, Martin Fleischmann from the University of Southampton in England and Stanley Pons from the University of Utah, held a press conference that sent shockwaves through the scientific world and beyond. They announced that they had achieved nuclear fusion, the power source of the sun, not in a colossal multi-billion-dollar reactor at millions of degrees, but in a simple glass jar on their laboratory bench at room temperature. They called it cold fusion. Their experimental setup was surprisingly straightforward. It involved a palladium electrode and a platinum electrode immersed in heavy water in which hydrogen is replaced by its heavier isotope, deuterium. When an electric current was passed through the heavy water, Pons and Fleischmann reported that their device produced excess heat, more energy coming out than was put in. This excess heat, they claimed, could only be explained by a nuclear reaction, specifically the fusion of deuterium atoms within the palladium lattice. They also reported detecting neutrons and tritium, byproducts typically associated with fusion reactions. The implications were staggering. If cold fusion was real and could be harnessed, it promised a near-limitless supply of clean energy. It would use seawater as a primary fuel, produce minimal radioactive waste compared to nuclear fission power, and emit no greenhouse gases. It sounded like the answer to the world's energy problems and a powerful tool against climate change. The initial announcement sparked a frenzy of excitement. Laboratories worldwide rushed to replicate the experiment. Media coverage was intense. Pons and Fleischmann became scientific celebrities overnight. There was talk of a new industrial revolution. However, the excitement soon began to wane. Many other research groups, including some at highly prestigious institutions, reported that they could not reproduce the Pons and Fleischmann results, particularly the crucial evidence of nuclear byproducts like neutrons. The original experiments came under intense scrutiny. Critics pointed to potential errors in calorimetry, the measurement of heat, and questions were raised about the reliability of the neutron detection. The field became deeply polarized. Some researchers claimed to have confirmed excess heat, while many others remained deeply skeptical or openly critical. The scientific debate grew acrimonious. A watershed moment was a contentious session at the American Physical Society meeting in May 1989, where some prominent physicists strongly debunked the cold fusion claims. Funding agencies became wary. The U.S. Department of Energy convened a panel that concluded in late 1989 that there was no convincing evidence to support the claims of cold fusion and recommended against dedicated federal funding for large-scale programs. This effectively shut down most mainstream research in the United States. Fleischmann and Pons stood by their findings, continuing their research for a time with private funding, but they faced increasing isolation from the mainstream scientific community. The term cold fusion became associated with fringe science or even pseudoscience in the eyes of many. Eventually, Pons left the United States and official research dwindled, though a smaller dedicated community of researchers continued to explore what they preferred to call low-energy nuclear reactions, LENR, or condensed matter nuclear science, CMNS. Meanwhile, the world continued to grapple with the consequences of its reliance on conventional energy sources. The burning of fossil fuels like coal, oil, and natural gas releases billions of tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, annually recognized by a vast majority of scientists as the primary driver of global warming and climate change. This has led to rising global temperatures, More extreme weather events like heat waves, hurricanes and floods, melting glaciers and ice sheets, and rising sea levels. Beyond climate change, oil spills, such as the Deepwater Horizon disaster in 2010, which released millions of barrels of crude oil into the Gulf of Mexico, have caused extensive environmental damage and economic hardship. The extraction, transportation, and processing of fossil fuels carry inherent risks and environmental costs. Energy security and the geotensions surrounding access to limited fossil fuel reserves also remain persistent global challenges. Number 7. Stanley Meyer's water-pod car. Imagine a car that could travel across the country using only water as its fuel. No gasoline, no diesel, just ordinary tap water. This was the extraordinary claim made by American inventor Stanley Allen Meyer from the 1980s until his sudden death in 1998. Meyer developed what he called a water fuel cell, which he asserted could split water, H2O, into its constituent elements, hydrogen and oxygen, using far less energy than conventional electrolysis, and then burn the hydrogen gas in a modified internal combustion engine. Meyer used his invention in various forms, most famously in a dune buggy he claimed ran purely on water. He would pour a glass of water into the fuel tank, start the engine, and drive. He stated his process used a specific electrical resonance to break the water molecule apart efficiently. According to Meyer, his fuel cell could produce enough hydrogen gas to power the car using just the vehicle's standard alternator and battery, effectively creating its own fuel on demand with water as the input. He received several patents related to his water fuel cell and hydrogen gas burner. The claims were, to put it mildly, revolutionary. If true, Meyer's technology could have transformed the global energy landscape, ended dependence on fossil fuels, eliminated a major source of air pollution, and provided virtually free transportation fuel. News reports and television segments featured Meyer and his water-powered dune buggy. He spoke of providing cheap, clean energy for everyone, from cars to homes. Some investors were intrigued, and Meyer sought funding to develop and commercialize his technology. He spoke of retrofitting existing cars to run on water. However, the scientific community was largely deeply skeptical. Meyer's claims appeared to violate fundamental laws of physics, particularly the first and second laws of thermodynamics. These laws essentially state that you can't get more energy out of a system than you put in no perpetual motion machines, and that energy conversions are never perfectly efficient. Some energy is always lost as waste heat. Conventional electrolysis to split water requires a significant amount of energy, and burning the resulting hydrogen produces roughly the same amount of energy back. To run a car continuously, Meyer's device would need to be a free energy or over-unity device, something mainstream science considers impossible. Meyer faced legal challenges. In 1996, he was sued by two investors to whom he had sold dealerships in his water fuel cell technology. An Ohio court found Meyer guilty of gross and egregious fraud. Expert witnesses, including a physics professor, examined his device and testified that there was nothing revolutionary about it, and it did not work as claimed, simply using conventional electrolysis. Meyer was ordered to repay the investors. Despite this, Meyer continued to promote his invention, attracting a following of supporters who believed in his vision and were suspicious of the opposition he faced. He often spoke of being under pressure from powerful interests, including oil companies and government agencies, who he suggested wanted to suppress his technology. Then, on March 20th, 1998, Stanley Meyer died suddenly at the age of 57. He was meeting with two Belgian investors at a restaurant. According to his brother during the meal, Meyer suddenly grabbed his neck, ran outside, and collapsed, saying he had been poisoned. The official cause of death was determined by the Franklin County coroner to be a cerebral aneurysm. However, his supporters and some family members maintained suspicions of foul play, fueling theories that he was assassinated to prevent his water fuel technology from becoming widespread. His patents and designs are still studied by enthusiasts today, with some claiming to have reprobate parts of his work, though no independently verified cure based on his principles has emerged. The world continues to rely heavily on petroleum-based fuels for transportation. This reliance contributes significantly to urban air pollution. With vehicle emissions containing pollutants like particulate matter, nitrogen oxides, and volatile organic compounds, these pollutants are linked to respiratory diseases, cardiovascular problems, and other health issues, particularly in densely populated cities. Smog blankets major urban centers around the world. Beyond health impacts, the extraction, transportation via pipelines and supertankers, and refining of oil have led to numerous environmental incidents, from oil spills devastating marine ecosystems to habitat destruction. Competition for oil resources has also been cited as a factor in geopolitical instability and conflicts in various parts of the world. Number 6. Flexible glass, vitrum flexile. Imagine a material with the transparency of glass, but the malleability of some metals. A drinking cup that, if dropped, wouldn't shatter into 1,000 dangerous shards, but might merely dent, ready to be reshaped and used again. This remarkable substance, often called vitrum flexile or flexible glass, is the subject of a fascinating and tragic story from ancient Rome, primarily recounted by the writer Petronius in his Satyricon, written in the 1st century AD, and Pliny the Elder in his Natural History. According to these accounts, during the reign of Emperor Tiberius, 14 to 37 AD, an unknown craftsman or glassmaker developed a new type of glass. This inventor managed to create a glass vessel, some accounts say a drinking bowl or a vase, that was not brittle like ordinary glass. He presented his creation to Emperor Tiberius, hoping for a reward and recognition for his groundbreaking invention. To demonstrate its unique property, the craftsman reportedly threw the vessel onto the pavement. Instead of shattering, it was merely dented, as if it were made of bronze. The inventor then casually took out a small hammer and repaired the dent, restoring the vessel to its original shape. Emperor Tiberius was said to be intrigued, but also deeply concerned. He asked the inventor if anyone else knew the secret of making this flexible glass. When the craftsman proudly declared that he alone possessed the knowledge of its composition and manufacture, Tiberius's reaction was not what the inventor had hoped for. The emperor, according to the story, ordered the inventor to be executed and his workshop to be destroyed. The reasoning attributed to Tiberius for this drastic action was fear of the economic consequences. He purportedly worried that if such an amazing and durable material became common, it would devalue precious metals like gold and silver, as this new type of glass might become more sought after than traditional treasures. Whether this was Tiberius's true motive, or if the story itself is embellished or even apocryphal, is a matter of historical debate. No archaeological samples of such Roman flexible glass have been definitively identified. The tale of vitrum flexile has persisted for 2 millennia, a tantalizing glimpse of a technology that appeared and then vanished. Modern science has, of course, developed various forms of toughened and shatter-resistant glass, such as tempered glass, used in car-side windows, which crumbles into small, relatively harmless pieces, and laminated glass used in windshields, which has a plastic interlayer to hold fragments together. We also have transparent plastics, like polycarbonate and acrylic, which are impact-resistant. However, the specific properties described for vitrum flexile glass, like transparency, combined with metal-like ductility and reparability with a simple hammer, remain largely unachieved in a single common material today. The dangers of ordinary, brittle glass are well known. Every year, people suffer injuries from broken windows, shattered drinking glasses, or flying shards in accidents or explosions. During earthquakes, for example, shattered window glass is a major cause of cuts and injuries. In vehicle collisions, before the widespread adoption of safety glass, occupants faced severe risks from sharp glass fragments. Even in everyday household situations, a dropped glass or a broken bottle can lead to nasty wounds. Historically, before safety glass became standard, incidents in factories or public spaces involving large panes of breaking glass could cause multiple severe injuries. The simple act of a window breaking in a storm or due to an impact can create a hazardous environment filled with sharp, dangerous debris. Number 5. Wilhelm Reich's Cloud Buster. In the mid-20th century, a controversial psychoanalyst and researcher named Wilhelm Reich, once a prominent student of Sigmund Freud, developed a device he called the Cloud Buster. Reich claimed this apparatus could manipulate atmospheric energy, which he termed orgone energy, to influence weather patterns, most notably to induce rain in dry areas or dissipate storm clouds. Cloudbuster, as described and built by Reich and his followers, typically consisted of a set of hollow metal pipes or tubes, often several meters long, mounted on a turret-like base that allowed them to be aimed at different parts of the sky. The ends of these pipes were connected by flexible metal conduits or cables to a source of water, such as a well stream or lake. Reich's theory was that water, being a strong absorber of orgone energy, could draw this atmospheric energy down through the pipes, thereby altering the energy balance in the atmosphere above the targeted area. By manipulating this supposed orgone energy, Reich believed he could stimulate the formation of clouds and rain, or break up existing cloud concentrations. Reich and his associates conducted several experiments with the Cloud Buster in the 1950s, particularly in arid regions of the United States, such as Arizona. He documented these efforts, claiming significant successes. For instance, in 1953, near Bangor, Maine, local farmers reportedly hired Reich to try and break a severe drought that was threatening their blueberry crop. Reich and his team operated the Cloud Buster, and according to his accounts and some anecdotal reports from the time rainfall did occur and the crop was saved, published his theories and experimental results in journals he founded, like the Orgone Energy Bulletin. However, Reich's theories of orgone energy and the functioning of the Cloud Buster were and remain far outside the bounds of mainstream science. The scientific community largely dismissed orgone energy as non-existent and his weather modification claims as unsubstantiated, attributing any observed weather changes during his experiments to coincidence or natural variability. There was no accepted physical mechanism by which such a device could operate as he described. Reich's work became increasingly controversial. He also developed orgone accumulators, box-like devices he claimed could concentrate orgone energy for therapeutic purposes, leading to conflict with the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA. The FDA considered these devices fraudulent and obtained an injunction against their interstate shipment and the dissemination of related literature. Reich defied the injunction, believing his work was being unfairly suppressed. This led to his arrest, trial, and conviction for contempt of court. In 1957, Wilhelm Reich died of heart failure in federal prison. Under the terms of the FDA injunction, quantities of his books and journals were burned. His Cloud Buster technology, along with his broader orgone theories, fell into obscurity for many, though a small community of followers continued his work. Droughts have plagued human civilization for millennia, leading to devastating consequences. The Dust Bowl in the American Great Plains during the 1930s, for example, was a period of severe dust storms that greatly damaged the ecology and agriculture of the region. It was caused by years of drought, combined with unsustainable farming practices, forcing hundreds of thousands of people to abandon their homes and farms. More recently, the Sahel region of Africa has experienced recurrent prolonged droughts since the late 1960s, contributing to widespread famine, loss of livestock, desertification, and humanitarian crises, affecting millions. In Australia, the Millennium Drought, from the late 1990s to 2009, had profound impacts on agriculture and water supplies. Such extended periods of water scarcity can decimate crops, lead to starvation and malnutrition, force mass migrations, and trigger conflicts over dwindling resources, fundamentally altering landscapes and societies. Number 4. Roman self-healing, concrete ancient Rome. An empire renowned for its engineering marvels, colossal aqueducts that carried water for hundreds of miles, vast amphitheaters like the Colosseum, sturdy roads that connected its sprawling territories, and imposing temples and bathhouses. Many of these structures, or at least significant parts of them, have survived for nearly 2,000 years, enduring earthquakes, weathering, and the relentless action of seawater in coastal constructions. One key to their incredible longevity was a remarkable material: Roman concrete. Roman concrete wasn't just strong. It appears to have possessed properties that modern concrete has struggled to replicate, including, according to recent research, an ability to self-heal cracks. The recipe, which varied depending on the application, typically involved a hydraulic mortar made from lime, calcium oxide, and volcanic ash known as pozzolana, named after Pozzuoli near Naples, an area rich in volcanic material. This was mixed with aggregate, such as chunks of rock or brick. For marine structures like harbors and breakwaters, Roman engineers often used a formulation with pozzolana and lime mixed with volcanic rock aggregate, sometimes placed directly into seawater. For centuries, the exact secrets of Roman concrete's exceptional durability, especially in harsh marine environments where modern concrete can degrade relatively quickly, were not fully understood. Structures like the Pantheon in Rome, with its magnificent unreinforced concrete dome, still the world's largest of its kind, or the ancient Roman harbors at Caesarea Maritima in modern-day Israel, or Portus Cosanus in Italy. These maritime structures, constantly battered by waves, have outlasted many more recent constructions. Recent scientific investigations, including studies published in the early 2020s, have shed new light on this ancient technology. Researchers have discovered that Roman concrete often contained distinctive white chunks known as lime clasts. Previously, these were thought to be signs of poor mixing or low-quality raw materials. However, advanced analysis suggests these lime clasts played a crucial role in the concrete's self-healing capabilities. When tiny cracks formed in the concrete, water seeping in would react with these lime clasts. This reaction could trigger the dissolution and reprecipitation of calcium carbonate, effectively healing the cracks and preventing them from propagating further, thus strengthening the material over time and extending the lifespan of the structure. The Romans also seemed to use hot mixing techniques, where quicklime was mixed with pozzolana and aggregates at high temperatures, creating chemical compositions that contributed to this self-healing process. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire around the 5th century AD, much of this advanced knowledge of concrete formulation and construction techniques was gradually lost in Europe for over 1,000 years. While concrete-like materials were used in later periods, the specific recipes and understanding that gave Roman concrete its extraordinary properties did not persist widely. Modern Portland cement, the basis for most contemporary concrete, was developed in the 19th century. While it's an incredibly versatile and widely used material, structures built with it generally have a shorter design life, typically 50 to 100 years, compared to their ancient Roman counterparts, and are more susceptible to degradation from chemical attack, reinforcement, corrosion, and cracking, especially in aggressive environments. The failure of modern infrastructure, often built with conventional concrete, can have severe consequences. Bridges have collapsed due to material degradation and structural fatigue. The Morandi Bridge collapse in Genoa, Italy in 2018, which killed 43 people, is a stark example, though multiple factors were involved, including design and maintenance. Dams can fail, leading to catastrophic flooding downstream. Buildings and overpasses can suffer structural damage from deterioration, requiring costly repairs or condemnation. Constant need to repair, reinforce, or replace aging concrete infrastructure represents a massive ongoing financial burden for countries worldwide. Production of Portland cement is also highly energy-intensive and accounts for a significant percentage, around 8%, of global carbon dioxide emissions. Number 3. Royal Rife's frequency theory. In the 1920s and 1930s, an American scientist named Royal Raymond Rife embarked on a journey that led him to claim some of the most remarkable and controversial medical breakthroughs of his time. Rife was a brilliant and meticulous inventor, designing and building his own highly advanced optical microscopes. He developed what he called the universal microscope, which he asserted could achieve magnifications and resolutions far beyond those of any other microscope then available. According to Rife and his associates, this instrument was powerful enough to observe living microorganisms, including bacteria and even viruses, which were generally too small to be seen with conventional light microscopes of that era, in their natural state, unstained and alive. Using his unique microscopes, Rife reported identifying specific microorganisms he believed were associated with various diseases, including cancer, claimed to have isolated a virus, which he called the BX virus, alleging it was a causative agent in carcinoma, a type of cancer. This in itself was a radical departure from established medical understanding, but Rife's most startling claim was related to a device he developed called the beam ray machine. This instrument was designed to generate specific electromagnetic frequencies. Rife stated that every microorganism had its own unique mortal oscillatory rate, MOR, a specific frequency of electromagnetic energy which, if applied, would shatter or devitalize that pathogen, much like a specific musical note can shatter a wine glass. He meticulously cataloged these MORs for various bacteria and viruses he studied. He theorized that by exposing a diseased patient to the correct MOR for the pathogen causing their illness, he could destroy the invading microbes without harming the surrounding healthy tissue. This offered the prospect of a non-toxic therapy for infectious diseases and potentially even cancer. Accounts from the 1930s, including some newspaper articles and reports from physicians who worked with Rife, described remarkable successes. Most notably, in 1934, a clinic was purportedly set up under the auspices of the University of Southern California to treat terminally ill cancer patients from Pasadena County Hospital using Rife's frequency therapy. According to a report often cited by Rife's supporters, after several months of treatment, a significant percentage of these patients were declared clinically cured by a committee of physicians and pathologists. However, Rife's work encountered immense skepticism and, according to his proponents, active suppression from the established medical community and commercial interests. The American Medical Association, AMA, under Dr. Morris Fishbein, who was its influential editor and secretary for many years, became a powerful force in shaping medical practice and policy. Rife's unconventional theories and treatments, which challenged orthodox medical doctrines and the burgeoning pharmaceutical industry, were not accepted. By the late 1930s and into the 1940s, Rife's fortunes declined dramatically. Some of his collaborators distanced themselves. Key associate, Dr. Arthur Kendall, who had reportedly provided the BX culture, moved away. Another, Dr. Milbank Johnson, who had been involved in the 1934 clinic, died. A fire, reportedly in arson, destroyed crucial documents and equipment in the Burnett lab, where some of Rife's technology was being validated. Rives himself became increasingly isolated and impoverished, and his research largely ceased. He died in 1971, his work mostly forgotten by the mainstream, though it has since been revived by alternative medicine practitioners and a dedicated community of researchers who continue to explore frequency-based therapies. The veracity of his claims, particularly regarding the cancer clinic and the capabilities of his devices, remains a subject of intense debate, with mainstream medicine generally regarding them as unproven. Throughout history, humanity has been ravaged by infectious diseases. The Spanish flu pandemic of 1918 to 1919 infected an estimated 500 million people worldwide, about a third of the planet's population at the time, and killed an estimated 20 to 50 million, though some estimates run much higher. Diseases like tuberculosis, polio, and measles caused widespread suffering and death for centuries. In more recent times, the emergence of new viral diseases like HIV/AIDS and COVID-19 has demonstrated the ongoing threat posed by pathogens. Furthermore, the rise of antibiotic-resistant bacteria or superbugs, due to the overuse and misuse of antibiotics, presents a growing global health crisis, threatening to make common infections untreatable once again. Number 2. Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower and wireless power. Nikola Tesla. The very name conjures images of genius, lightning bolts, and visionary inventions far ahead of their time. A Serbian-American inventor, electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, and futurist, Tesla is best known for his contributions to the design of the modern alternating current, AC, electricity system. But one of his grandest and ultimately unfulfilled dreams was the wireless transmission of energy and information across the globe. The physical embodiment of this dream was the Wardenclyffe Tower. Around the turn of the 20th century, with funding from powerful financier J.P. Morgan, Tesla began construction of a massive transmission tower in Shoreham, Long Island, New York. This structure, also known as the Tesla Tower, was an imposing wooden lattice framework rising 187 feet, 57 meters, high, topped with a 68-foot, 21-meter, diameter hemispherical copper dome. It was part of a larger complex that included a laboratory and power plant. Tesla's stated initial aim for Wardenclyffe was to create a global wireless communication system to transmit telegraph messages and eventually voice and images across the Atlantic and around the world. Tesla had an even more audacious vision for Wardenclyffe. He believed he could use the Earth itself as a conductor, sending electrical energy wirelessly through the ground and the atmosphere to any point on the planet. He envisioned a future where electricity would be freely available to everyone, anywhere, without the need for a sprawling network of expensive copper wires. Imagine homes, factories, ships at sea, even flying machines, all powered wirelessly from a central source. He spoke of disturbing the electrical equilibrium of the Earth and tapping into what he considered an almost limitless reservoir of energy. Tesla conducted experiments at Wardenclyffe, producing spectacular electrical discharges from the tower, some reportedly creating artificial lightning bolts many feet long. He was confident he was on the verge of a breakthrough. However, his ambitions outstripped his funding. J.P. Morgan, who had initially invested $150,000, a huge sum at the time, was primarily interested in a system that could compete with Guglielmo Marconi's transatlantic radio telegraph. When Marconi successfully transmitted the letter S across the Atlantic in December 1901 using simpler, less expensive equipment, and when Tesla revealed to Morgan his grander plans for free wireless power, which Morgan would put the meter, further funding dried up. Tesla desperately tried to secure more capital, but his pleas went largely unanswered. He was forced to abandon the Wardenclyffe project in 1906. The tower stood as a silent monument to his unfulfilled dream for over a decade, a subject of local curiosity and rumor. Eventually, during World War I, the US government, concerned that German spies might use the prominent tower for signaling, ordered it to be dynamited and dismantled in 1917. Tesla, already facing financial ruin, was devastated. His vision of a world powered by clean, wireless energy faded into the realm of what-ifs. He continued to invent and theorize for many years, but never again attempted a project on the scale of Wardenslif. The world today is heavily reliant on complex and vulnerable wired electrical grids, primarily powered by fossil fuels like coal, oil, and natural gas, as well as nuclear power, and increasingly reuse. The burning of fossil fuels is a major contributor to air pollution and the greenhouse gas emissions driving climate change. Power outages, whether due to extreme weather events like hurricanes, ice storms, or heat waves overwhelming the grid, or due to equipment failure or cyber attacks, can cause widespread disruption, economic losses, and even loss of life, particularly for vulnerable populations reliant on electrically powered medical equipment. Many remote communities around the world still lack access to reliable electricity. During natural disasters, the first things to often fail are power and communication lines, severely hampering rescue and relief efforts. The centralized nature of power, generation, and distribution also presents security vulnerabilities. Number 1. Starlight. Once upon a time, a hairdresser from Hartlepool, England, with a passion for amateur chemistry, invented a material so extraordinary that it defied belief. His name was Morris Ward, and his invention, developed in the 1980s, was called starlight. Starlight was a type of plastic, but it possessed thermal insulation properties that seemed almost magical. Ward demonstrated starlight's capabilities numerous times, often in televised experiments that left scientists and engineers astonished. In one famous demonstration, an egg coated with a thin layer of starlight was subjected to an oxyacetylene torch flame, which can reach temperatures well over 2,500 degrees Celsius, around 4,500 degrees Fahrenheit. After many minutes under this intense heat, the starlight coating would be charred on the outside, but the egg underneath would remain entirely raw, not even warm to the touch. Ward would crack it open to show the untouched yolk and albumin. He performed similar demonstrations where starlight protected a human hand from a blowtorch for several minutes without any sensation of heat. The material was reported to be able to withstand temperatures that could vaporize other known insulators, up to an estimated 10,000 degrees Celsius in some tests, including simulated nuclear flashes. It didn't just insulate. It also seemed to ablate, burn away slowly in a very controlled manner, releasing very little smoke or toxic fumes and forming an incredibly resilient carbon char that continued to insulate. It was lightweight, could be formulated as a paste, a spray, or a putty, and adhered to many surfaces. Potential applications were immense: fireproofing for buildings, vehicles, and aircraft, protection for spacecraft during re-entry, shielding for firefighters or soldiers, containment for hazardous materials. Imagine airplanes that could survive intense fires, or buildings where fire simply couldn't spread from one room to another. NAS, the UK Ministry of Defence, Boeing, and other major aerospace and defence organisations expressed keen interest and conducted their own tests on samples provided by Ward. Reports from these tests confirmed starlight's remarkable properties. However, Morris Ward was intensely secretive about starlight's composition. He claimed it was made from a secret formula involving around 21 organic polymers, copolymers, and small amounts of ceramics, all readily available. He was terrified that his invention would be stolen, or worse, fall into the wrong hands and be misused perhaps by terrorists or aggressive military powers. He refused to patent it in a way that would reveal its formula, and negotiations with various companies and government agencies stalled over his demands for retaining a controlling interest often 51%, and ensuring the formula remained secret. He was reportedly wary of large corporations and their lawyers. He allowed small samples to be tested, but never enough for reverse engineering. Decades passed. Ward continued to guard his secret closely. Believed his invention was worth billions, perhaps trillions. But he lived a modest life. Despite numerous discussions and expressions of interest from some of the world's largest technology companies, no major deal was ever finalized to bring Starlight into mass production. Morris Ward passed away in May 2011, and it is widely believed that he took the complete formula for Starlight with him to the grave. While some family members may know parts of it or have access to his notes, the full verified recipe for creating this astonishing material remains elusive. Small samples still exist, tantalizing reminders of what was. Fire remains a devastating and perennial threat across the globe. Every year, fires in homes, apartment buildings, nightclubs, forests, and industrial facilities claim thousands of lives, cause horrific injuries, and result in billions of dollars in property damage. The Grenfell Tower fire in London in 2017, where a fire in a high-rise residential building spread rapidly via combustible exterior cladding, resulted in 72 deaths and highlighted vulnerabilities in modern building materials and safety regulation. Catastrophic wildfires, exacerbated by climate change in many regions, destroy vast areas of land, homes, and habitats. In transportation, fires in aircraft, ships, or road vehicles can have horrific consequences. The vulnerability of modern materials to extreme heat also poses challenges in aerospace, such as protecting spacecraft during the intense heat of atmospheric re-entry, or in industrial settings dealing with high-temperature processes.